to begin by saying that these two young people that you all supported are tremendous. Are you not proud of them? Very poised, very well spoken. Do you do this too? I find myself when I'm looking at young people like that asking, was I anywhere near as poised as at their age? No, I wasn't. No way. So congratulations to both of you. It's clear that you have a path to success. And as you've already recognized, a big and important part of being a success is helping other people. So thank you for recognizing that. So again, good afternoon to all of you fellow Dillardites. I thank you for the invitation to be with you today on this very cool summer day. Now, it may seem ridiculous to, and in fact counterfactual, to call this a cool summer day, but I hope we all know that perception and outlook are everything in our daily lives. So remember, when you walk out and it's 100 degrees, think it's really 70, and you'll face the day in a completely different way. Having gone to Dillard, I learned to recognize how to make a way out of hope. And our HBCUs overachieve still today in that regard. Thank God for HBCUs. I'm so pleased and proud to greet you as a fellow Dillardite. I've spoken so often about my experience as a Dillard student, mostly because I've been in circles where people are not familiar with Dillard, and where people are inclined to say how improbable my journey has been. And so when they say, well, you went to a small, historically black university in New Orleans, how did you get to be the first African-American president of an Ivy League university? They're trying to make that compute, whereas I'm always thinking, yes, but you don't understand. That's how I went all the way to the top of the Ivy League, by going to Dillard. So I've been delighted to tell that story over the years. It's of course been many years since I was a student at Dillard, but my gratitude for what I learned there has actually grown stronger in each year that I've lived. I didn't know how much the lessons I learned there would reverberate throughout my life. I didn't know that the teachers I had there would be among the most important mentors of my entire life. I did not know that what I was afforded at Dillard would prepare me for a leadership role in higher education. Of course, today we are beset by assertions that things are somehow hopelessly broken in virtually every sector, that education is worse than it was decades ago, that the only solution is to create educational opportunities that are much more efficient, much lower cost, much more technologically rich, and especially different from the past. But most of those who advance such ideas have little understanding of the immense pool of talent that we have been afforded, those of us who were educated in the schools in presumably troubled communities of Houston. I was myself a student at Wheatley. And that was greeted with some sympathy, but in actuality, well, the sympathy should have been for, people who went to Jack Yates, but not for the people who were, it's amazing how that resurfaces, just like that. You can't help it. The immense pool of talent that we had access to. And the fact that students are often trapped in circumstances that can hinder their positive effort, to food insecurity, entrenched poverty, lack of family support sometimes, and so much more. Yet young people stand up every day under such burdens and find their way to a campus where their minds are developed, their hope awakened, and their opportunities for achievement greatly expanded. Dillard was a lifeline for me. I'd been born in a small town in East Texas, Grapeland. My family moved to Houston's 5th Ward when I was 7, and I was able to be educated in Houston's public schools. Atherton, E.O. Smith, Phyllis Wheatley. Like most at that time, my family had few assets, and we lived well below the proverbial poverty line. But when I landed at Wheatley High School, something marvelous happened. A Dillard graduate, Vernell Lilly, took me under her wings and stoked my interest in learning about the wider world outside of my small, segregated community. As a teacher, she was nothing short of inspirational. As a mentor beyond the confines of the high school, she was absolutely heroic. It was she who insisted that I go to Dillard, and it was she who argued for a scholarship to enable that step. So I've often said, without Mrs. Lilly, first, I probably wouldn't have gone to college at all. And secondly, I certainly would never have found my way to Dillard, which, as I say, made me the person that I became. Everyday alumni of HBCUs, understanding the transformative power of our unique educational environments, introduce new students to a realm of education that fosters the hope that would otherwise be in shorter supply. The 10 largest HBCUs combined only enroll 100,000 students. But among that select group of students will surely be leaders throughout the nation and throughout the world. Educators understand better than most that education is not really just a numbers game. It is not at its best just a retention game. It is not at its best just a testing game. It is not a competitive game. The sociological basis of education counts more than these factors by far. Socializing students to the process of learning endures well beyond the period when all the data and facts fade from memory. From the time I met Mrs. Lilly at Wheatley, she gave me an orientation to learning that prepared me not only for Dillard, but also for Harvard. She taught me how to learn and to keep learning. And the odd thing about teachers of that era, perhaps it's not odd, but the thing, perhaps I should say, the remarkable thing about the teachers of that era is that they were all in. It was not a 9-to-5 job for them. When I got into Dillard, and I had this dilemma, because of course I had no money at all. And so my teachers got together at Wheatley. They went into their closets and they took clothes that they thought would fit me, and they packed a bag for me and sent me off on the train to Dillard. That's not all. If I ever needed anything when I was at Dillard, they sent me money. All in, 100%. Particularly this Dillard woman, this strong Dillard woman, Vernell Lilly, who meant everything to me as a young person. And so inspiring this ideal of learning how to learn was something that I took with me on that train to Dillard. It was masterfully imbued in me by an education at the hands of other Dillard faculty who, over my time at the university, gave me the confidence to challenge ideas, to treasure different perspectives, and to exercise my full right to learn on a par with anyone else in the world. I have to say that I'm very much aware that I was insufferable when I was at Dillard. The faculty proved that many times by, in one instance, trying to get rid of me. They sent me off to another school as an exchange student once to get rid of me. And also by telling me constantly I was a problem on the campus. And that was because I was very active and I spoke my mind, and I was absolutely convinced that I was right about everything. Absolutely convinced. And so often today, people say, how do you, in fact, I just came back from a conference in Chicago with a group of university presidents. This was the question they brought me there to ask me. How did you, in that time, have the confidence to be able to lead an Ivy League university with no model in front of you? How did you find the resources to do that? And I explained to them what it's like for a student who is given permission at a place like Dillard to be awful. When our students are on many of the campuses around this country, and they speak truth to power, and they assert themselves, and even when they make mistakes, they are soundly reproved by people who do not support the idea that they need to assert their identity. I was lucky enough to go to a place where, though I was a nuisance to everybody, people gave me the room to do that. And so by the time I left Dillard, I was prepared to assert myself, right or wrong. I was prepared to offer some of what my experience was, good or bad. So that's very important to our young people, that they have that room to grow. And at my university today, when I have very heavy-handed staff and faculty who want to insist that students who are doing that sort of thing are problematic, I really have to push back against that, because if students can't do that in our schools, where can they learn to do that? Because we well know that as they enter the professional world, whatever they're going to do, the one thing they have to be able to do is plant their feet and have the confidence to express themselves authentically. And we can give them that, and we must. I've been a university professor and administrator for 4 decades, and I think there's no one formula really for learning, no one formula for a healthy school environment, no one formula for creating a pathway to success. I think it's important, again, to assure students that it's important to learn how to learn, for it is in being subjected to ever higher levels of knowledge that students become capable of higher thought and greater achievement. Formal learning trains us to do just that. I'll never forget my first year at Harvard. I went into a class, I think it was medieval, either Renaissance literature, I think. And we were asked to do something called an explication de texte. But it was blind, and so the professor passed out the assignment and we were all asked to turn it in. And then he started reading them and critiquing the explication de texte. Now, if you're in a graduate program at Harvard, the presumption is that everybody in that class has come from somewhere at the top of their class, graduating class around the country. And so, so he read these essays and said that they were dismal and that he had a lot of work to do with this class, except for one. And he read it and he praised it and said, this is excellent.